We are diving deep into a competency that, it fundamentally changes the nature of conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about ICF Core Competency 7, which they call Evokes Awareness.
Right.
And this isn't just some, technical skill. It feels like the engine of all self-discovery.
It really is.
So if you're a learner, a manager, a coach, really anyone who sits down with another person hoping to spark some kind of insight, this deep dive is for you.
That's so true. Our mission today is, it's to take this stack of highly technical source material. We've got the ICF's foundational 11-point checklist, and marry it with the practical wisdom of a master certified coach.
So we're synthesizing the what with the how.
Exactly. The foundational what with the expert how. This competency, in that moment, a conversation stops being just a discussion about problems, and it starts becoming a transformative learning experience.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Before we even open the source documents, I think it's worth noting, for anyone familiar with the older coaching models, this competency isn't entirely new.
No, it's more of a synthesis, isn't it?
It is. It's a brilliant one. Competency 7 now bundles together core elements from what used to be powerful questioning, creating awareness.
Yes, direct communication.
Right. It focuses all that energy into one single, highly focused outcome, which is actively evoking that internal shift for the person you're talking to.
And that focus gives us a great roadmap. The official high-level definition says the coach facilitates client insight and learning by using tools and techniques such as powerful questioning, silence, metaphor, or analogy.
But the real key, the thing that helps you master this, is understanding that detailed blueprint underneath. And that's where source 1, that 11-point checklist, comes in. It's the blueprint for success. It really defines the whole scope of awareness you need to facilitate.
Yeah, it tells you exactly where a masterful conversation has to travel.
So instead of us just, reading these off like a grocery list, maybe we should group them by theme.
That's a great idea. Let's do that. So let's start with the foundation, which has to be the client's internal world.
Right.
Checklist item number 3 really emphasizes this. It's about asking questions about the client's way of thinking, values, needs, wants, and beliefs.
That's the foundational depth right there.
It is. Awareness has to start with self-identification. If you're only asking about external circumstances, the job, the boss, the market, you're missing the target completely.
That makes perfect sense. The circumstances change all the time, but the underlying values, they usually don't.
Exactly.
So a client might come in saying, I hate my job, but a masterful coach uses those value-based questions to get to the real issue. Maybe it's a misalignment between their need for autonomy and their current, rigid structure.
And what's fascinating is how that connects directly to checklist item number 1. Which requires the coach to consider the client experience when deciding what might be most useful. It's a closed loop.
Yeah.
We probe their inner world so we know exactly how to guide the conversation.
Right. But awareness isn't always comfortable.
No, it's usually not.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the second big theme, forward movement and challenging their current limits. Okay. So while we're gathering information about their current values, we have to immediately pivot to helping them go beyond their current thinking.
This feels like where a good conversation separates from a genuinely impactful one.
It does. Checklist number 4 demands lawns. Asking questions that help the client explore beyond current thinking. So if your question can be answered immediately using the same logic they already have, it's not serving this point.
And sometimes you need to introduce a bit of tension.
A little bit, yes. That's why checklist number 2 is so critical. Challenge the client as a way to evoke awareness or insight.
I wonder about that word challenge. For a learner, that can sound a little confrontational. Can you give an example of what a masterful challenge would look like?
Yeah, it's not confrontation, it's contrast. A masterful challenge might sound something like this. You just stated that your core value is freedom, but you also just committed to taking on a project that requires working 80 hours a week for the next 6 months. If freedom is your true North Star, how do you reconcile those two commitments?
Okay. That's incredibly specific. It highlights the gap without telling them what the solution is.
Exactly. And recognizing that gap leads us to the third theme, pattern identification and perspective shifts.
Seeing the cycles they're stuck in?
The cycles they didn't even know they were in. Checklist number 8 states we must rig out. Help the client identify factors that influence current and future patterns of behavior, thinking, or emotion. We're looking for the software running in the background.
And once you can see the pattern, you can start to rewrite the code.
That's the hope. And once those patterns are visible, the final steps come into play. So checklist number 10 is about supporting the client in reframing perspectives, helping them pivot.
And number 9 is about inviting the client to generate ideas about moving forward.
Right. Awareness has to always lead to possibility. These 11 points really, they define the whole landscape of awareness.
So we have the blueprint, the comprehensive guide for what must be achieved. Now let's connect this to the bigger picture. Our expert source analyzed how master coaches, we're talking MCC level, master certified coach, how they actually behave to make sure these 11 points are met.
Right, moving from the technical checklist to the 3 core observable behaviors of mastery.
Exactly.
So the first core behavior is evocative questioning. We touched on it with checklist 4, but at the MCC level, the questions consistently allow the client to go far beyond their superficial story.
And what's interesting here is that the true indicator isn't the brilliance of the question itself.
No, it's the client's physical and mental reaction.
Oh, you mean the pause.
I do. That's it exactly. They take that noticeable moment before answering. They stop talking about just the facts, and they start talking about feelings or insights or possibilities. They're genuinely working through a new process.
Right. They're articulating thoughts they hadn't put words to 5 minutes ago.
Yes. And the source material had a really crucial warning here. Questions should not be about gathering information. If your question only serves to fill a gap in the coach's understanding, it's just information transfer. It's not creating insight for the client.
That distinction is absolutely key. Let's try to make that really sharp. So if a coach asks, when did you first realize this was a problem? That's information gathering, right? It's about the past. But an evocative question, one focused on the client's learning, might be something like, if you approach this situation with zero fear of failure, what choice immediately surfaces?
See, that question creates the pause.
It does. It bypasses the history and demands imagination.
Precisely. That is the essence of master behavior number 1.
So what's the second behavior that elevates coaching to that MCC level?
The second is sharing observations and thoughts, which connect directly to the last item on the checklist, number 11. And for this to be a mastery behavior, it has to have 2 essential components. First, it must be done without attachment. The coach has to hold their observation loosely, not believing that their view is the truth of the matter.
It's an offering, not a medical diagnosis.
Exactly. And second, it must include a clear invitation to respond in any way the client wants. The coach makes it crystal clear that this offering is purely for the client's forward movement. They can take it, reject it, ignore it.
They have total autonomy.
Total autonomy.
Okay, give us a scenario. Let's say a struggling coach notices the client seems anxious every time they mention their boss. How would a master coach share that without attachment?
Well, a struggling coach operating with attachment might say something like, it's clear you're afraid of your boss, and that anxiety is what's blocking you. That feels like a declaration, doesn't it?
It does. It's a judgment.
It is. A master coach would observe the same thing and say, I notice a shift in your breath and your voice tone whenever you reference that specific meeting. Does that observation land anywhere useful for you, or is that just me?
See, that's an invitation. It acknowledges it's just a perspective being offered for their reflection.
That subtle shift is powerful.
And the third behavior, the one that often makes new coaches sweat.
The third is using silence. The question here is simply, how comfortable is the coach with extended periods of quiet?
Right.
Mastery means allowing the client to talk, process, feel, and think until they are truly done. It's holding the space, sometimes for 15, 20, even 30 seconds, for that internal mechanism to just turn over and connect and reach completion before the coach jumps in again.
Yeah, new coaches often mistake silence for a void that they need to fill. But if that evocative question just created a breakthrough, the client needs time for that insight to crystallize.
And if the coach jumps in too quickly, they actually interrupt the very awareness they just worked so hard to evoke.
That's the crucial point.
It is. The mastery of silence is really the mastery of patience, trust, and presence. And when we look at the MCC level, mastery is a matter of degree and presence of these 3 behaviors.
It's more intense.
Much more. At the Master Certified Coach level, you expect even more space for the client. The client has significantly more voice than the coach, and the coach's interventions, whether they're questions or observations, are fewer, but far deeper and more impactful.
So we have the gold standard. Let's pivot to the diagnostic side of things. If those are the signs of mastery, what happens when a coach is struggling with that 11-point foundation? What are the red flags?
The struggling indicators are, well, they're clear violations of the principles we just talked about. The first one is a lack of space or impatience.
Okay.
If the coach interrupts the client frequently or if the coach's talking time is substantially higher than the client's, they're violating that principle of silence and holding space. The client just feels rushed.
And their processing stays superficial. That usually signals the coach is prioritizing their own agenda, right? Their need to deliver the next brilliant question over the client's need to process.
Exactly. The second major indicator is the interview style.
Ah, the rapid-fire questions.
Yeah.
Yes. Frequent, one right after the other. And crucially, these questions are non-evocative because they only focus on fact-gathering about the past or the present. They completely fail to help the client go beyond their current thinking, which is a direct violation of checklist number 4.
So if the client can answer all your questions instantly...
You're running an interview, not a coaching session.
Right. So if the client says, "I'm thinking about quitting my job," and the coach asks, "How long have you felt this way? What would you do instead?" That's the interview style. It's asking for information.
Yes. An evocative version might be, if staying in this job was simply not an option, what belief about yourself would instantly be required for you to move forward?
That requires introspection, not just recall.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, when the struggling coach does offer an observation, how do they undermine awareness?
By exhibiting attachment. The coach's communication is delivered with this conviction. The coach truly believes what they present is the unquestionable truth. And worse, there's often no invitation to respond.
They just drop it like a truth bomb. They do, and then immediately move on, imposing their perspective rather than offering it. It violates the non-attachment in checklist 11, and it just robs the client of their autonomy.
Wow. This has been a fantastic synthesis. We started with that technical, complex blueprint, the 11 points, and we've successfully merged it with the practical application of mastery, those 3 core behaviors: questioning, sharing observations, and silence.
And the key takeaway for you, the learner, is that the foundation of evoking awareness is measurable. It's not about the words you speak. It's about the results they produce.
It's the client's pause.
It is. The measurable difference between a surface-level question and an evocative one isn't the phrasing. It's that pause. That momentary silence is the undeniable evidence that you have successfully helped them explore beyond their current thinking.
That moment of silence is the gold standard of success in this competency, because that is where the internal learning is actually happening.
Right.
The source material really emphasizes that gathering information is for the coach, but insight is for the client. And this raises an important final question for you to mull over.
Okay.
If awareness is learning, how can you ensure the questions you ask in any context, coaching, a project meeting, a significant conversation, are focused not on getting information for yourself, but on creating insight and genuine self-discovery for the other person? Think about how often your questions serve your curiosity versus their learning.